Welcome to the Caramel Apples Podcast, a podcast that celebrates all things 70s and 80s pop culture and explores how this fond nostalgia affects our lives. Each week, we travel back in time to embark on the nexus to revisit retro segments that ingrained itself into our culture and our hearts. Now, here's your hosts, Kennedy Rizzo and Cooper Lee. So, when we think about good movies, I mean good 80s movies, one can't help but think of the wonderful, heartwarming classic The Money Pit, starring Tom Hanks and Shelley Long, and directed by Richard Benjamin.
Oh, yes, The Money Pit. Just thoughts of watching this film literally and truly bring on all the feel goods.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It definitely has all the key components of notable 80s references and such.
Oh, I agree, Coop. This is one of those movies that is easily effortless entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
The creators did a fantastic job in taking a very real world situation and making it fun and corny all at the same time. I think it's classified under the slapstick label.
Oh, yes. Completely understand why. And it's cool that this film was made at a time when cool, respectable actors were incorporated in, and they were astute at their craft of acting.
Yeah.
And speaking of the word star or celebrity, these terms seemed much more fitting to attach to that type of talent because they actually were good at what they did, and they were known.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're so right about that. And because you'd hear a name and would instantly be able to picture this person and no doubt be able to name a number of their fine examples of work.
Ah, the 80s. I have all the love in the world for such a marvelous decade.
Oh, ditto.
The entertainment was lighthearted and movies were innocently enjoyable without tons of toilet humor and nasty jokes.
Yet for many of us, that decade holds many treasures. Where nostalgic fever takes hold and a warm glow does come along in watching the youthful Tom Hanks bound about in comedic golden ease. I just love Tom Hanks here more than I do in his better films.
Uh-huh.
He was the everyman. I mean, this was Tom Hanks at the height of his comedic talent before he became serious.
Yes. And it continually amazes me that Tom Hanks will go down as one of the best dramatic actors of our time.
Mm-hmm.
And little will be spoken of how good a physical comedian he had been before, acing a much more serious side of acting,
Yeah.
which ultimately changed the direction of his career. This is truly the era where Tom Hanks was a comedian. Spoiler alert. This is a movie that we know well and love. So we are going to be discussing and reviewing it in great detail. So if you haven't, seen it yet or want to go back and rewatch it so that it's fresh, you may just want to skip this week's episode.
You've been warned.
No takesies backsies.
Nope.
Otherwise, all bets are off. Grab your popcorn and enjoy this with us. So, are we ready to dive into the money pit?
Yeah, buddy. This is exciting.
I knew Kennedy would be ready for this.
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. This is my jam. So we start out where Walter Fielding Jr. is a lawyer broker manager paying the debts of his crooked father, played by Douglas Watson, after embezzling millions of dollars from their musician clients. He then escaped from the USA and took up living in Brazil with his new wife. Walter and Anna, played by the talented Shelley Long, they lived together in the apartment of her former husband, Max, aka the Maestro, who is in Europe. However, the Maestro returns unexpectedly and they have to find and move to a new place quick.
Quick. An unscrupulous realtor friend of Walter's, Jack Schnittman, advises him to take a $1 million house, that's US dollars,
Woo!
in a crazy bargain, of a 200,000 from an old lady, Estelle,
Okay.
and that's played by Maureen Stapleton, who desperately needs the money due to an extradition problem with her husband Carlos.
Like, geez, Carlos.
I'm already chuckling because as I see these scenes play out vividly in my mind, this film is just great.
I know, right? It really is.
Mm-hmm.
So they borrow the money, and when they start living in their new home, they soon find out that the house is not exactly what they expected for.
Mm.
Yeah, so the plot finds Hanks and Long as a young couple who buy what they think is their dream home, only to find the house falling apart around them. Could you imagine that?
Uh,
What a nightmare that would be.
mm-hmm.
Just when you take a leap of faith on something substantial, like purchasing a place, and problem after problem keep happening.
Yeah.
That would be an absolute nightmare.
Yes. Because, that dollar amount that we talked about, that would seem like quite a bargain, Okay, $1 million versus now you're going to sell it for 200,000.
Right, right.
That would be like the deal of the century. So they're probably like, oh, the joke's on you to the seller, but they find out the joke was on them pretty quick.
Much to their chagrin.
And the nightmare ensues.
Yep.
You really do speak the truth on that. When you think of real world scenarios like this. So the interesting portrayal of this happening was spot on.
Mm-hmm.
The laughs come thick and fast as they realize the mansion is a lemon and it's literally coming apart bit by bit. And the entire front door frame rips out of the wall. The main staircase and chimney collapses. The plumbing is full of sewer goo. Ick. The electrical system catches fire. The bathtub crashes to the floor, and a raccoon is infesting the home. They have been well and truly had as the previous owners.
Oh, they sure had been. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
That's so unfortunate. So as all the horror unfolds around them, both try and remain calm, expressing their love for each other, and with Anna constantly reminding Walter that everything will be okay. The critics absolutely ripped at the money pit when it got released.
What?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they apparently didn't realize that it wasn't pretending to be a masterpiece or anything. It was just a big excuse to be funny, and they succeeded with that.
Yes, they totally didn't get the memo, apparently.
Uh-uh.
I personally thought that Tom Hanks is phenomenal and one of the greatest actors of all time.
Oh, yeah.
I think and feel that Tom Hanks' best work lies much in his earlier comedic roles like here in The Money Pit.
Oh, I agree. It seems he prefers more serious, real life story type of roles these days,
Mhm.
which he's wonderfully good at and currently most known for.
Sure.
But I wonder if he'd ever be interested in doing future comedy roles.
Ah,
Would he be able to pull it off now as an older, more seasoned actor?
that'd be interesting.
It really would, because he's that good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We Gen Xers remember Tom Hanks, the actor, in this way most. Because his true roots are in comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So the way he pulled off the role in The Money Pit is not surprising and it is priceless.
Mm-hmm.
It would be actually kind of cool to see him pull off a role or two like this now because him being good like that, he's a very versatile actor.
Mm-hmm.
He really needs to act in some more comedies.
I don't know if he'll do much bounding about anymore, though.
True, but we still have spoken.
Speaking of bounding about, Hanks made a string of films in the 80s, relying on his physical comedy ability. Most notable, Big, Dragnet, Turner and Hooch, and The Man with the Red Shoe.
Oh.
Quick trivia. The Money Pit is one of three 1986 movies starring Tom Hanks released in that same year.
Hmm.
The other two films were Nothing in Common and Every Time We Say Goodbye.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
But I think that the Money Pit is still his best.
Yes.
For a fact, that's my favorite all times Tom Hanks movie ever.
Truly partial to it.
He is the Money Pit. The Money Pit is Tom Hanks.
I love your logic.
As small as it is.
Whatever.
So I know I can recite this movie while asleep. I know and love it well. This movie is intended to be a farce, and it totally succeeds.
I agree. The Money Pit is quite unforgettable and perhaps one of the funniest he's been in. It's the kind of film that you can watch again and again, and it gets better with each viewing.
It does.
Kennedy and I are forever quoting this gem of a movie.
Yeah, buddy. We speak fluent movie quotes. And that really is a language,
That's a bit of a stretch there, but I'll go with it.
Good. It works for us. So let's talk about Hanks's many facial expressions, shall we?
Priceless.
Oh, God, yes. Like the time when he's fixing the steps.
Mm.
Yeah, and he accidentally hammers his thumb. Too stunned to curse, he does what we all do and begins to beat the mess out of the offending step.
Take that, you stupid mean step.
Yeah, you bad step.
As we've stated already, Tom Hanks is a legend. What a talent. Funny or sad, he's pure gold.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have to say that I love Shelley Long in this film. She's very good doing comedy, and I can't picture anyone else in this lead.
Oh, I agree.
I've never seen her in the role of Cheers. Shoot, I've never even watched Cheers. I know that might make some people angry, but it's the truth. So, this is honestly my first early introduction to Shelley Long, and I have to say, I absolutely loved her in this.
Me too, Cooper. I never understood why some people have said that how much they didn't care for her.
Oh, what?
Yeah, because she's a seemingly sweet, charming 80s actress.
Mm-hmm.
I also liked her in the underrated 1987 film Hello Again.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
But back to your point, the good acting and terrific chemistry of Hanks and Long together was absolutely primo. Walter and Anna's reactions helped make these scenes so funny. Ah, the spot on reflection of the yuppie sensibilities of the 80s.
Yep. You really feel for them, as everything they touch falls apart.
You do.
The fun is in just watching this place come apart and crumble. Poor Walter is the hapless guy who can't find reliable workers to fix his new bought home. And it is here where some really great, very colorful characters are introduced and interspersed throughout the film, resulting in some great comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact: Long Island wasn't mentioned in the movie for where this house is. It is just said to be an hour from Manhattan, but parts of Long Island are about an hour away, and that actual house from this movie really is in Long Island.
Oh, no kidding.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay. Well, the story is pleasantly predictable and it will lighten your mood. Anyone who's ever had to deal with house repairs and contractors will find this endearing tale of woe to be completely relatable.
Sad but true. Um, There were many a contractor and plumber who take the young couple for a ride. We have head carpenter Art Shirk, played by Joe Mantanga, that that thinks that every time a woman calls a carpenter, she's looking for the old hammer and nail. Tacky.
Buddy.
Then you had his brother, the plumber, Brad Shirk, Carmine Caridi, come over and immediately demand some scotch and a $5,000 check while refusing to even look at the plumbing.
Oh my goodness, that's rotten sauce. I love that scene.
And the ride begins.
Then when it was ultimately and randomly decided to get the work done on the house, then the work crew, who looked more like a freak biker and Hot Wheels gang, just further tear up the house to shreds. Then won't repair anything until Walter sees and gets approval from the permit guy, Montgomery Schrapp, who he himself is a difficult, constipated curmudgeon.
Well, I have to say, you listen to his name. If that were my name, I think I'd be pretty grumpy too.
Well, that is unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
Uh-huh.
So at this point, the house is basically a pile of rubble, and anyone that comes to the house after this point look upon it in disbelief that anyone in their right mind would call this home. Comedically uttered the ongoing quip, "You testing missiles here or what?" Coop, this movie is a classic. It is truly one of a kind.
Oh, yeah. And we can't forget about Curly, played by Philip Bosco, who is the genial, can-do, useless supervisor of the biker gang. I mean, construction crew. Who is in all smiles and has only one answer to exactly how long the project will take to finish. 2 weeks, 2 weeks. That predictably ends up lasting 4 grueling months.
That's a big difference, isn't it?
2 weeks plus what?
Good grief. There are so many funny scenes we've enjoyed in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, remember when an electrical fire started in the kitchen just from turning the light switch on?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the fiasco resulted in a flying cooked turkey shooting out of the oven as Julia Child's cooking show aired in the background. Then another subtle scene that some may have missed, but which we absolutely loved, and being privy to one of the funniest doorbells we've ever heard. It was ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish we had the opportunity to hear it more than once in this movie.
Thankfully we can rewind and listen to it a few more times on our own.
Yes, that has to happen. You can still hear it, right?
Yes.
It was bad.
Another one I loved and hope I can do it justice, just as I describe it, is, the unforgettable scene where after everyone is working well into the project, and when someone pulls that cross plank away,
oh no,
and Walter starts silently falling through the house, then ends up outside clumsily falling into a paint tray. Now he's visually impaired, and he wanders around with a paint-coated sheet over his face.
Oh no.
He finally falls into a cart and flies down the lawn, workers and scaffolding scattering everywhere in slow motion, all to orchestra music.
Beep.
He gets dumped into the water fountain where the little boy statue starts peeing on his head. Every time I see this scene, I scream with laughter. Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
classic funny right there. Oh my goodness, this is a good one doing today. Oh my goodness.
You have to watch it again right now. Huh?
Oh, gladly. So there are a few actors, very few actors, who could pull this and many other golden scenes off in this film. Maybe someone as enjoyably funny as Jim Carrey, perhaps.
Oh, yes. I love him too. Yes.
Oh yeah, Jim Carrey's the bomb. He really is. So back to Money Pit though. I love the earlier scene where he falls through the carpet, covering the hole in the floor of the den and gets trapped in the hole.
Yes.
Yeah, granted, we were preteens when we first saw it, but even so, we laughed hard and often as this was our standard of humor.
Scary thought, but true.
Oh, very scary. So we got a quick trivia question. In this scene where Walter was stuck in the rug upstairs in the den, Anna heard him talking out of his head. Which famous 80s cartoon characters did he swear he saw while waiting and hallucinating? Weigh in if you can remember this reference.
That is a good question, Kennard.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear the responses we get for it.
Right? Because it really does date the movie, too.
It does. Thanks for us.
Yes. Woohoo! Now, Hanks makes the scene very funny, especially when he starts singing the name game song to pass the time. And two, thinking of the floor, that carpet scene, Walter and Anna's back and forth banter was seamless.
Mm-hmm.
Shelley Long is as good as Hanks, and I felt they were well matched in terms of good chemistry in this film.
Yes, their chemistry together was so undeniable that, it was quite believable that they were an endearing couple who were now up against the wall in terms of relaying the urgency in needing to find a new place quick.
Mm-hmm.
In New York, mind you.
Yeah.
They scooped us along on their adventure together of house hunting and finding the specimen they together decided to go in on.
And the two of them had a very natural on screen romantic chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
They're believable as a couple. I hate it when filmmakers cast romantic leads that have absolutely zero natural flow and chemistry between them.
Oh, yeah.
It just makes for awkward interaction that distracts from the story flowing well.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, thankfully, they avoided that with this movie.
This movie is older, but definitely worth taking a look at if you haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
The first time you watch it, it's genuinely hilarious. We've seen this movie so many times, and it just never gets old.
No.
It's still hilarious.
It really is.
Regardless of what others and critics have said, in my humble opinion, I think the movie's great.
Mm-hmm.
Or as Anna would say, the house is going to be great.
The plot is not the strongest, but who cares? The movie was made to make us laugh, and hands down, it succeeds.
That it does. A couple other elements about this film worth mentioning is one, the songs and soundtrack used to help propel and amplify some parts, and two, the actual location being nothing short of blissful due to them filming in one of the most exciting cultural places here on planet Earth, that being of New York.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
But first, let's talk about the music briefly.
Okay, so we start off right away with a pretty cool 80s sounding song in the opening credits. The Heart is So Willing, and that's performed by Stephen Bishop.
Mm-hmm.
I love this song, and it fits the Money Pit to a T. It musically sounds like an interesting, exciting adventure is about to unfold. I believe it also is played once again for the ending credits.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you for verifying that, because she would know that, folks. She would know that. There's also the cute What's the Next Mishap anthem? Sitting on a Dream, performed by Melissa Manchester. For them, it's the oh no moment when that song starts.
Oh, yeah.
But this song makes me smile. And the many classical orchestral themed pieces in reference to the maestro And his symphony begin in, they're very integral to the story.
Oh yeah, it is. This too is an important element of the money pit.
Yes, they didn't miss on details, that's for sure.
And now talking about them, you can hear these now.
Mm-hmm.
So a little earlier, we briefly referenced the incredibly funny scenes where both Art and Brad Shirk turn and burn after further frustrating and confusing poor Walter about the terms and details they were willing to take on in fixing the house. As they jump back into their cars, they peel out, tearing down the driveway, spewing dust. The gag was that both of them peeling out to the same part of the song sung by Sammy Davis Jr., I Gotta Be Me, which sounds that it's got that very Vegasy, loungy type music sound.
Uh-huh.
Easily chuckling going on all throughout this film. Truly crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now let's briefly talk about New York.
Now, when we speak of seeing authentic New York, this movie brilliantly showcases nostalgic aspects of it.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just cut to the chase and mention the Twin Towers.
Woo!
Hmm. It's both weird and cool to see how the Twin Towers dominated the New York City skyline long before the sour events of 9/11 took place. We actually got a couple of opportunities to visit this impressive landmark back in the 80s and 90s. Now, I finally looked for this film set and, films in New York City, and I especially looked for this landmark, um, as well as some of the other notable landmarks and bridges.
Oh, you're so on point about that, Coop. New York City. Oh my goodness, there is absolutely nothing like it.
Hmm.
Especially back when you just described. It was in
Yeah.
its heyday.
Yes.
We really could go on and on about New York City, but we'll save that for another time. Oh, what do you think? Maybe we'll do a show about that and some different famous movies that were filmed there during this amazing era.
Ooh, I like it.
The idea has some merit, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I approve.
Well, one thing's for sure. If we do, you'll definitely be hearing about the money pit again.
Yay! We're so glad.
Our listeners are like, oh no.
But that would be super cool.
Yeah.
But back on topic, in all seriousness though, the money pit deals with situations like real estate fraud and bad investments,
Hmm.
something that plagues the country more today than it did when this film was released. And when Walter's out of shape real estate buddy Jack referred to the whole housing market as often, quote unquote, making a quick dollar off of other people's misfortune,
So terrible.
that remark is sadly so true and actually more depressing than funny.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Really, especially for folks who have lost homes or have been ripped off in an ever ruthless market.
Yeah.
But somehow, through awesome comedic perception, the money pit makes this unfortunate aspect of our times into something crazy funny.
The money pit makes a very important statement on how human lives get caught up in their finances and the money they invest in their homes.
Hmm.
Walter and Anna literally need this house or they have nowhere else to go. Talk about being between a rock and a hard place.
Oh, yeah.
Their whole livelihood and many a borrower dollar is invested here, and financial stress takes its toll. And in the end, almost tragically for their relationship.
Yes. It's also a movie that reminds us vividly that stress and breaking under pressure is only human.
Mm-hmm.
We've definitely been experiencing that on steroids for a long while now concerning this pandemic, but I digress. There's a lot of humanity in this film, and it's very touching and comforting.
Oh, so fun fact. I didn't know this initially, but Money Pit was meant to be a remake of the old classic film Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, starring Cary Grant.
Okay, so didn't realize that at first either,
Hmm.
but I've since made it a personal project one weekend afternoon to watch it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, let's just say that it wasn't what I expected, seeing how entertaining the money pit was.
Yeah.
It wasn't really that good, to be honest.
Are you? Oh, Oh,
It was
that's too
not that.
bad.
Yeah, it no, it wasn't that good.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. I mean, you even older movies, you really can hardly go wrong with a lot of older movies.
yeah, and Cary Grant, he's really one of those actors from back then that it's like
Right.
you can enjoy his movies. So, oh,
Yeah, he's a veteran, and so was his co-star. But it was the co-star for me that killed it.
oh, that's just too bad.
Yeah. So at least I can say I saw it, and I totally, I'll stick to the money pit. That's my go-to from here on out.
Yeah, you did what you could. You tried.
So here's a couple more trivia questions for our Orchard archivers.
Okay.
Number one, what was the name of the cross-dressing singing group Walter Fielding Jr. represented and managed? And number two, what two famous actress names did they present to Tom Hanks as viable options to change their band name?
Those are really good questions. I like those.
Okay.
So I have a couple too. What did the vanity license tag read on the Carpenter's red 1984 Chevy Corvette? And number four, what country did Walter Fielding Sr. get married in the beginning of the film?
Hmm.
So here's a hint. We actually mentioned it at the beginning of this episode this week. If you know or remember any of these, please hit us back with your answers. We so look forward to hearing what you come up with in order to spark these very fascinating retro conversations.
Good questions yourself, Coop.
Thank you. Fun fact, that house at the end of the movie that Walter's father and new bride purchase is actually in real life a famous museum in Miami, the Vizcaya, in the affluent Coconut Grove.
Oh, Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Another interesting spot we could share many a story about.
Mm-hmm. It was huge in the 80s too, though, wasn't it?
It actually was.
Uh huh.
It was. It has a lot of pop culture references rooted there.
Mm-hmm.
So, to top off our discussion, the money pit was about a big, fabulous sinkhole that provided an endless barrel of laughs. It was Murphy's Law in that place. It fell apart in amazing fashion, putting insurmountable strain on both Walter and Anna. But through it all, their professed love ultimately endured and survived, much like their newly renovated home, based on the fact that the foundation was good. In that notion, most anything can be fixed, a parallel ending to make the money pit both enjoyable as well as memorable.
Well said, Kennard. And this right here can only happen when the actors involved are committed to the realism of the moment. A relationship to survive needs a lot of work invested in it, and you shouldn't be quick to throw it away at the first mistake or misunderstanding.
Mhm.
But the coup de grace of the entire thing is a slapstick set piece that brings down the house literally, making this one of the funniest movies ever. I think everyone should see this film at least once.
Yep.
As Walter Fielding would say, ah, home crap home.
That is awful.
And that is it for this week's episode. To make sure that you never miss out on another second of our Carmelicious podcast, meet up with us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcast fix. Bye for now, and thanks so much for listening.
Bye.